Mic check, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go touch base with them. Yeah, I just want to make sure. Yeah. How many copies of the thing are you going to send? Seven. Whatever number you give me, I've just been bumping it for once, so just to be safe.
I'm putting all my stuff in here. Okay. 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 Okay, thanks everybody for coming. Welcome to Gage Elementary School. I'm Maureen McGee, Communications Director. I will introduce the speakers. We have Principal Kathy Burns, Superintendent Cindy Martin, Board President John Lee Evans, Board Vice President Richard Barrera, and then we have Chief Operations Officer Drew Rowland on hand to answer questions. So let me please introduce Kathy Burns, Principal of Gage Elementary School.
Good morning, everybody. I wanted to take a minute, first of all, to welcome you to this wonderful community. Those of you that may not be familiar with Gage, we have an amazing group of teachers and students and parents and support staff that welcomes you. So I also want to welcome our district leadership. It's so nice to have you on campus. During phase one that we've had so far, it's been so nice to see our students here, their smiling faces through their masks. And we look forward to our future phases. Thank you. Superintendent Martin, come on.
What's that?
We don't need the speaker. It sounds better without it.
What speaker?
That
Oh,
one.
over there? Okay.
It was reverb.
You want me to wait?
I don't know if you need it. Where the mic go? I can just turn this away. Do not do that, Bruce.
Are you okay? So can you speak?
Want me to use my outside voice? Okay, thank you.
We're good, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And first, I want to say thank you to the principal, Kathy Burns, here at Gage Elementary for hosting us today for this important update. Thank you, Kathy, for hosting us. Really appreciate you. From the start of this COVID-19 crisis, San Diego Unified staff has stepped up to support our families. We've passed out more than 6 million meals and distributed some 85,000 Chromebook computers to our students. Our teachers have provided millions of minutes of online instruction. It's been a heroic effort. and one that would not be possible if not for spectacular leadership of committed people like you see here in Principal Burns. At schools just like Gage, all across San Diego, workers have installed desk shields, air filtration systems, sanitizing stations, social distancing signs, and a lot of PPE. More than $11 million in PPE. Overall, we've spent more than $45 million preparing our schools to reopen in the safest and most responsible ways possible. We've not cut corners, and we will not cut corners. I want our families to know that we are taking every possible precaution to keep our students safe. Safety's been our strategy from the very start. That's why we announced some of the strictest health and safety standards in the state on August 10th. These standards were created in partnership with some of the best scientists and medical researchers in the world right here at UC San Diego. Now, if you check the dashboard on our website, you will see we are in the yellow range. The yellow range means it's still not safe for a full reopening. Nevertheless, our scientific experts said that it would be possible to reopen for small groups of students if we do so gradually and we do so in phases. And that's why we started that process, phase 1, on October 13th, following what our UCSD team guided us to do. Today, we want to provide our school community with an update on this phase 1. And despite hosting some 4,000 students appointments at more than 100 schools, we have had 0 documented outbreaks of COVID-19 and 0 documented cases of transmission on our campuses as determined by the County Office of Public Health. This is good news. This is encouraging, but it's just the beginning. It's a highly contagious virus, and we must remain vigilant. Every one of our schools has a COVID-19 preparedness plan that includes numerous safety factors, things like cleanliness, air filtration, and there's enough hand sanitizers. Do we have enough PPE for our staff all across our campuses? These plans are displayed outside each reopened school. But starting this week, we will also begin posting these checklists so that you can see them. We'll post them online so everyone can see what's happening in terms of safety at their neighborhood school. So now I'd like to introduce our board president, Dr. John Lee Evans.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. As you can see, we are in the early stages of the implementation of Phase 1. Phase 1 was developed while consulting with our scientific and public health experts at UCSD and with the full collaboration of our principals and teachers. We've been doing this with elementary students, and we plan on moving forward with middle and high school students and younger students in an expansion that we will work out again with our principals and teachers. The progression to Phase 2 is dependent on successfully implementing Phase 1. We look forward next week to what Superintendent Martin was talking about, is seeing regular reports on levels of participation as well as safety reports on the status of the virus in the schools. Last week, we revealed information and details about the phases because we wanted our families to see the strong mitigation measures that we will take with our science-based approach in each phase to keep our students and our employees safe. And of course, everyone is asking, well, when is the next phase going to happen? Our current plan is to begin Phase 2 for elementary students after the winter break on January 4th, and middle and high school students on January 25th at the beginning of the 3rd academic quarter. Phase 2 will have our elementary students divided between AM and PM sessions to allow social distancing with fewer students in the classroom. Middle and high school students will attend 2 days in person to reduce the number of students in the classroom. But in both cases, families will have the option of distance learning if the students or family members are medically fragile. So what can throw this plan off track. There are two main factors. Number one, lack of success of controlling the virus in phase 1, which we do not believe will happen. Or two, external conditions of the virus in the community. I would like to make an appeal to our community to assist us in reopening our schools. Personally, I do not believe that bars and restaurants should be open before our schools are open. Everyone needs to avoid large gatherings and follow all of the safe practices. We are teetering between the red and purple tiers in our county as we speak right now. But the mitigation measures that we have in place for phase 1 allow us to remain open. We are not talking about the dates for phases 3 and 4 because that's a full return to school and there's much more that needs to be done. We have many safety factors that we're considering, including full testing and tracing. So for further comments on this, I would like to turn the podium over to Richard Barrera, the Vice President of the School Board.
Thank you, President Evans. And again, thank you so much to Kathy Burns and the Gage community. We are inspired by what we see here at this school, and we see an entire school community coming together to give opportunities for our students to come back in person. We know Kathy talked about not only teachers volunteering to come back, but our noon duty aides are here welcoming our students as they come onto campus. We've got our para-educators. Thank you to Drew Rowlands and the operations team for all of the mitigation factors that have been put in place here, including improved ventilation in the classrooms. So this is an example of the work that we have to do in all of our schools to be able to move on to phase 2. We're very concerned, as Dr. Evans just mentioned, about what's happening in the spread of our community in the spread of the virus in our community right now. We actually anticipate that San Diego County will move into the purple tier sometime in the next few weeks. We know that once the county moves into the purple tier, we can continue with our phase 1 approach, but what we cannot do is move then to phase 2 and the subsequent phases. And by the way, the same metric, the same key metric that the state uses to evaluate whether the county is in the purple tier is the #1 metric that our UCSD team identified in early August, which is the number of cases per 100,000. We've already crossed the threshold that exceeds the recommended number that our UCSD experts recommended back in August. We don't see that we're moving in a better direction. We see that we're moving in a worse direction in this county. And so that is absolutely something that is going to need to start to move in the right direction in order for us to move to phase 2. What we also are committed to doing in this district is to go even beyond the recommendations of our UCSD panel, and that is to create a robust, regular testing program so that all adults and all students are who come onto our campuses are regularly tested for the coronavirus every 2 to 3 weeks. We believe that would be the most ambitious testing program of any large school district, any place in this country. But we are basing the need for that program on the advice, again, of some of our key UCSD partners who believe that if we can have a robust testing program in place, we can prevent upwards of 90% of the cases that would otherwise occur on campus. And that combined with the mitigation factors that we are already putting in place, the ventilation, the PPE, the cleaning of the classrooms, the keeping students in small groups, we would have tremendous confidence that it will be safe for students and adults to be here on our campuses. Building that confidence of our staff and of our parents and of our students is key to what we're trying to accomplish in phase 1. We've got work still to do in phase 1, but we're encouraged, what we've seen so far. but we have to be able to state with confidence to our community that when we move to phase 2, it will be safe for our students and our staff to be here on our campuses. We believe that as we continue with the expansion of phase 1, with the safety measures that have already put in place, and with a robust testing program, we will be able to move to phase 2. But again, we've got to be keeping an eye on the spread of the cases in our community, as Dr. Evans said. So again, I'd like to very much thank our principal, Kathy Burns, and the Gage community. We do have Drew Rollins, our Chief Operating Officer, here, who can answer questions about the safety mitigations that have been put into place. And I guess with that, we're open to questions. Yeah.
Yes, we can open it up to
One more statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Superintendent Martin?
Excuse me. Thank you. Just finally, I would like to thank our community. I want to thank our community for their tremendous support during all of this, and especially Mayor Faulkner. He's been laser focused on helping us and supporting us to get COVID-19 testing access that we need to operate safely, and I appreciate that support. I also appreciate the support from UCSD Chancellor Pradeep Khosla. Chancellor Khosla has made some of the world's leading public health experts available to us to advise us on a safe reopening of our school. So I wanted to be sure I mentioned both of them and their tremendous support and the community at large. Thank you, Maureen.
Okay, we can open up to a few questions. Rory?
So, Richard or John, you said the end of, or the beginning, end of winter break.
Yes.
Okay. But there's a lot of ifs, it sounds like. If. Could you tell us how realistic you think the end of winter break is? Do you really think it's, I don't want to even say realistic, do you really think it's going to happen given all the ifs?
Yes, this we believe.
Sorry, John.
My mask. This we believe is a realistic goal. There are a lot of things that we have to work out in terms of making the proper arrangements to do it. And as I said before, the external factor that we don't, and the school district have control over, is what is the spread of the virus in the community. If it's just too widespread in the community, then we're not going to be able to proceed to phase 2. But we do believe that we have the mitigation. If that does not happen, we do have the mitigation measures in place in phase 1 that we'll be able to continue on in phase 2 for the elementary and then the middle and the high school students.
And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but Richard said, looks like we could go into the purple here. We have, situations in Vista where there seems to be more kids testing positive. So without your crystal ball, or maybe take out your crystal ball and tell me again, I know you have the mitigation in place, $45 million worth. That's great. But given what's going on right now, do you really think it could happen at the end of winter break?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. And our whole thing too is to move ahead with this plan because we know that it's possible. We know that we can be stopped. But if we are not making this plan and then things turned out better than expected, then we would be caught flat-footed and not be able to move forward successfully. So we're moving ahead on the idea that we will be able to do it, but knowing that there are certain factors that could stop or delay it.
Any other questions? Anybody else?
Sure.
Okay.
So I was asking the county just the other day, like how many, we've got a lot of school districts that have more kids on campus than San Diego Unified, and I was asking how
I don't think we can make that claim at all, Will. It's way too early to make any sort of claim that the evidence is clear about what's happening with other school districts that are opening in our county. We've got counter hypotheticals, that I think Rory just mentioned, the situation in Vista. And And here's the thing that we have to be clear about. None of the districts that are opening are doing regular testing right now. So the only way that we know if somebody is positive on one of our campuses is if somebody who is symptomatic then goes in and is tested, which is not necessarily guaranteed even that to happen, and then that positive test is reported back to the school. We know that roughly half of people in this country who are carrying the virus are asymptomatic. So it's again why it's so important for us to be doing regular testing of all of our students and adults who come onto our campuses, whether or not they're symptomatic, and that will start to give us a clearer picture of, whether we're seeing outbreaks, whether we're seeing, cases that could potentially be transmitted onto campus. So I totally reject the idea that evidence is clear based on a few very small examples in our county of districts that have been partially open for some period of time, and there have been examples of positive cases occurring, in those districts. Again, I think the evidence around the country is very mixed on what's happening when school districts are opening. And I think we just have to, have some common sense here, which is that if the virus is continuing to spread in our community, and if we are yet able to actually test all of the people who are coming onto our campuses, that we should expect, even with the best mitigation, measures that we're putting into place, and we hope other districts are putting into place, that at a minimum, you'll have students and staff that are coming to campus carrying the virus. We also know that, there's generally a big split in this county between districts that in communities have high rates of spread of the virus, like the South Bay districts, versus districts in other parts of the county where the virus is spreading at lower rates. And that's a significant issue, because if we believe that it's more likely, given the spread of the virus, especially in certain communities, that people will be coming onto our campus with the virus, then we really have to know that we're going to be able to prevent that spread, once people come onto campus. I don't think there's a single district in this county, or frankly in this country, that can make the claim right now that they know that if somebody comes onto one of their campuses with the virus, that they are able to prevent the spread, because we don't have the testing that allows us to make that claim. So developing that testing program in addition to all of the other mitigation measures is something that we feel is critical to be able to, with confidence, say that people will be safe on our campuses.
Is there any amount of positive cases that's acceptable? Because when I hear you describing it, you're trying to control risk, and I understand that. But as you and I and other people here have talked about many times, like, what's happening to some kids now who are stuck at home is very, very not good. So are you saying, like, you don't want any positive cases to come on campus?
We don't want the cases to then spread. We can never be in a position where we're going to say there are not going to be positive cases that come on campus. Of course, that's the point of, the virus being at such a high level in the community. We expect positive cases will come onto campus. What we have to know is that when a positive case comes onto campus, it won't spread to other students or staff. That's the measure that we are going to evaluate safety based on.
About the UCSD scientists, when you go back, if we go back at the end of winter break, is that going to be dependent upon what the UCSD scientists say, which has a higher standard, or is that going to be dependent upon the county numbers? And have the UCSD scientists given you the green light at this point to open up at the end of the winter break? I don't know where the UCSD scientists.
You can find the UCSD guidelines on the website.
Am I what?
I'll show you where the
Well, I
guidelines
just
are.
want to know. I know what the guidelines
Okay.
are.
We're sticking to the UCSD plan.
And have they
Yeah.
given you the green light?
Well, no, because we're not at the green light point.
Right, will they, in the end of the winter break, will you be dependent upon them to say if you can go?
We'll be dependent on the guidelines that they've already developed, yeah, including the number of cases per 100,000.
Second, Maureen.
Okay,
And
I'm
then the
sorry,
teachers
Kristen.
union, have you finished your negotiations?
No,
How
and
does that play into all this?
well, we have to negotiate with the teachers, with the principals, with our classified employees to have an agreed upon plan. But we're confident that we're going to be able to do that. We've done it every step of the way. That has allowed us to even get to this phase, which you don't, by the way, see in many of the large districts around California. It's what's gotten us really double the time of direct learning online as compared to other large urban districts. So we're confident that we will work through what we need to negotiate with all of our employees. And it's important that we do that because the employees are bringing a perspective that is critical. And we need to have confidence in our employees that when they come onto campus, it's going to be safe. And we need to build that confidence among our parents.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Rory, but I did skip Kristen. She hasn't had a chance to ask the question.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify, so what specifically would prevent phase 2 from happening at the scheduled date? Is it moving to the purple tier, or is that basically what it is?
If we're in the purple tier, we will not be able to move to phase 2.
And if the UCSD ties and say it's not time, you can't move.
Yeah, the metrics are very similar, in the UCSD report and what the county has.
Yeah,
I have a question behind you.
Okay.
It's a clarification question, Richard. The testing program you mentioned, you have confidence that we'll be ready to go by the target date of phase 2 with or without extra funding?
Well, no, we will need extra funding to keep that program going, through the year, and that's absolutely, clear. So it goes back to the point that we've been making over and over again that we need to get the next federal stimulus package. It's interesting that what's being debated right now in Congress and with the president is not about the amount of money for schools. There's general agreement on the amount of money for schools. And so whether or not a stimulus happens before the election or happens after the election, we think that when the stimulus is passed, and we think there's a very good chance it will be, that there will be certainly the resources there to keep our testing program going.
The goal is to have that testing program you mentioned ready to go by that January date.
Yes. Yep.
Right, just to add to what he was saying, because it's related to these two questions. Just to add what he was saying to the questions about what are the different things that could stop the reopening, in terms of the virus in the community, the testing and so forth. We are moving ahead with the plans to do that with the confidence that we will be able to work out the agreements with the unions in terms of what are the working conditions, because that's important. There are issues about workload when you're doing different types of things. And also in terms of the testing, we're going to go ahead and just like we said at the beginning, we're going to go ahead and get the testing set up and begin doing it. How long we can sustain that is going to depend on the stimulus money. And obviously the stimulus money is not there right now. It might not be there until there's a new administration, but we're going to need it at some point to be able to do it throughout the year. But we're not stopping our planning with moving forward based on the idea that one of these things might stop us.
Yeah, just to clarify, the district will expand phase 1 to middle and high school students even if the county enters curfew?
We can go ahead. We are within the guidelines in terms of having this limited participation in elementary school and middle and high school, even when we are in the purple tier.
Was there a date set for that?
Well, we just need to get with our employee groups and work on some of the details of this, which we need to work out, but we hope to be able to start that very soon so that we have a broad, two reasons. One is that there's students who really are suffering and falling behind, and we want them to be able to be at school and participating. And number two, the more students we have on campus, the better, the more robust is the test of our safety procedures and so forth.
Thinking like November?
Well, next week is November, right? So I'm not sure about the exact day, but hopefully very soon, within the next week or so.
So it's a short window, January 4th to January 25th, and there's been a lot of talk about, you know, older kids and younger kids, and, you know, there's certainly some thought that younger kids seem to be spreading it less, and maybe that's not because they don't hold it, maybe it's because of mitigation factors, but why push the early kids and the older kids so close together, January 4th and January 25th? Like, why not spread that out a little more?
Well, the idea is that we really would hope that we would be ready after the winter break to begin, and so that's why we're starting right away with the elementary students. The natural transition is that really the grading periods for middle school and high school, which is rather than starting them all on January 4th, we're doing on January 25th, so that it just corresponds to the grading period. And there's also something to be said just in terms of the system. I mean, it's different at every school, but just to have the entire system working on elementary schools for a few weeks and then adding on the middle and high schools makes the transition a little bit smoother too.
I guess the experts, one of the things I'm pretty sure the experts have been very clear on is they kind of told you guys it would be safe to bring younger kids back first. I'm pretty sure a couple of them made that statement pretty clearly. You don't exactly seem to be doing that, though. You know, you're kind of doing it based on a grading window. You know, I mean, could we be bringing I'm just doing my job here, but like, could we be bringing the younger kids back now? You guys don't seem to totally be following that phased approach with age.
You want to comment on that, Richard? I mean, yeah.
Well, I think we very much are following that phased approach with age. As you see in phase 1, these are elementary school students. What we're hoping is, you know, what John just talked about, that the next piece of phase 1 would include older students. And having older students on campus in phase 1 gives us the same ability to start preparing, to start monitoring how we're doing, you know, with older students who are coming onto campus. And then, as John just talked about, we would have a gap, you know, between when our elementary school students would start in phase 2 and when our older students would start in phase 2. You know, if we feel like there are problems, you know, let's say we meet the January 4th and we're starting with our elementary school students and we feel that there are problems, you know, in implementation, then of course we would move back, you know, the start of phase 2 for our older students. But we think we are following a phased approach with younger students first.
So Richard, I hate to be persistent on this, but I know I'm going to hear this today from people who say they want schools to reopen and you're not picking up the reopening soon. So maybe there's a clarification needed for them. I mean, they say you're dependent upon the UCSD scientists to give the green light. The UCSD scientists have a higher standard. Why do we in San Diego Unified have to have a higher standard when everybody else can go with the county standard? And then I think in answer to the question, you said they were the same. So are they higher? And those are the ones you're going to go with. So how would you say to people who say, why do we have to be special and go with higher standards when everybody else is going with the county standard?
So the first metric that both the state looks at and the county is cases per 100,000. And the current number that the state is looking at, 7 cases, you know, unadjusted are adjusted, you know, cases per 100,000, is the exact same number that the UCSD scientists came up with in early August, before, you know, the state identified that metric. It was, at the time, the UCSD scientists were talking about over a 2-week period, 100 cases per 100,000. Now we're talking about 7 daily cases per 100,000. It's the exact same metric. So, and that is the key metric that will determine whether or not the county goes into the purple. The state has now established another metric, which is about equity. And, you know, what the state is saying is that if a county is in a certain level, before it can then move into the next level, it has to have an equity metric that is satisfactory. Now, that's a new one, you know, since the UCSD panel came up with their recommendations in early August. It's an important one to keep an eye on because, again, we're a district where we have big disparities in our communities between areas where the virus is spreading at higher levels versus others. And then in addition to the state metrics, what the UCSD scientists looked at were a couple of metrics that the County of San Diego has deemed important. One of which is, when there is a positive case reported, are we following up and within 24 hours doing investigation and contact tracing? And the county metric was that in 70% of the cases, we should be following up within 24 hours with investigation and contact tracing. The UCSD panel said that is also an important metric that we should be using as a school system, because again, even if we develop our expanded testing program that we intend to do, we're dependent on county investigators and contact tracers to be able to quickly follow up with those cases. So that's another metric that we're using. And then there's the metric of community outbreaks. And we've had this discussion about the importance of community outbreaks. And I would say that right now, the numbers in terms of, the metric that was established is no more than 7 community outbreaks over a 7-day period. And unfortunately, we're nowhere close to meeting that metric in San Diego County. I think the last number I saw was 26. We've had weeks that we've gone above 30. I think we've had a week that we got to 40. It would be one thing if we were getting really close, to that 7 in 7 days, and we didn't, want to say that that's the only thing that would hold us up. But when we're nowhere near that number, when we're over 3 times, 4 times that number, it again indicates that the direction that we're going right now in San Diego County is not a positive one. And so that would be the other metric that the UCSD team is looking at beyond where the state is looking.
People who say, why are we following UCSD standards when they're higher than the county standards? What do you say? You say
they're basically the same, is the first thing that I would say. And the second thing that I would say is, the reason we went to the UCSD team in the first place is we wanted local scientific experts to guide us on what would be the safe standards to reopen schools during a time when, quite frankly, the guidance coming from the state of California, whether it was the Department of Public Health or the Department of Education, the guidance coming from the federal, CDC, the guidance coming from other areas was extremely inconsistent and unclear. And so we went to the UCSD team, Superintendent Martin went to Chancellor Khosla and said, we need something clear that we can actually work with. And that's what resulted in the UCSD team coming together. And so we feel that the UCSD plan is, again, almost exactly the same numbers that the state is using to evaluate the county, but it's a solid plan, and we'll stick with it. And we'll stay in communication with the UCSD folks, and if they feel like there's things that, based on the, evolution of what's happened over the past few months, we should change, we're certainly going to pay attention to that. But we want to be guided by the best science available to us, and the fact that we have world-class scientists here in our own community is extremely helpful.
We can take follow-up questions now on a one-on-one basis, so I can help. Mike and I can help. Pardon me? Oh, you're in the pool. Okay.
Yeah, just really quickly.
One more then, sure.
What's the cases per 100,000 today, Richard? Do you know? I haven't looked, because I know we were looking for a Tuesday update today, right?
Yeah, we haven't heard yet. We know that it's been about 7 or inching above 7.
Right. They still haven't moved us into the place where it counts as purple.
Not yet, but what we're assuming is that it could happen, within the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
I was going to say, there's going to be a rally today outside the district with the reopen San Diego schools, and they're going to say, I believe, this is a smoke screen. Hey, we have a plan, but we really are not going to implement it. And given the fact that we got to have a teachers union contract, which you say you can do, we have to have money from the federal government to get the testing, which you say you can do. We have to have COVID cases going down. Obviously, you say we mitigated that as much as we possibly can. They're saying this isn't going to happen. They're saying this is just a smoke screen to pacify people. Oh, we have a plan, but it really doesn't mean it's not meaningful.
Yeah, I don't think anybody that is saying reopen now is going to be thrilled, with the fact that we're saying it's going to be after winter break. But all we can do is we understand how frustrating this is for all parents. We know that there are many parents who say this is frustrating, but I'd rather know that my kids are safe than rush them into a situation. So we know that we've got all of those perspectives all over our community. Our job is to follow the science, put the safety measures in place, actually be aggressive in developing a testing program that we think should become the model, for school districts throughout the country. Our job is to get our schools to be at the point that we can confidently say it's safe to come onto campus for students and adults, and that's what we'll keep working on.
If anybody else has any other questions, I can help facilitate. Also, we have a news release that was issued while you were all here. If you want a hard copy, I've got one here as well. I know some folks have time restraints.
Can I ask you a quick question maybe on Tuesday, if there's anything for next week's board meeting? Is there anything that's going to come out of that? Like, I'm just like,
Come out of regarding real.
like I'm just
A lot
thinking.
of